If you're like I was, and I think you are because you found this video, you are considering getting into the hobby of beekeeping and you don't know much about them. And you may even live in a city like I do, which makes this hobby a bit difficult as well. You may have watched some videos and are now even more confused than before. When I first started looking on YouTube, I found lots of videos, but they were very lengthy and not easy to understand for a beginner. So I'm going to tell you what a beginner needs to know, and it's coming to you from someone who just went through what you'll be going through, as I'm also new to this hobby. So to start with, here's the basic anatomy of a beehive. At the very bottom is the base, or bottom board. This is basically just a board on the bottom to act as the foundation of the hive. Most beekeepers place this on top of a cement pad or on top of a pallet or something else just to raise it off the ground just so that it doesn't rot on the dirt or on the soil. I think cement pads are best. That's what most beekeepers have shared with me. The size matches the beehive quite well, so I find those work the best. On top of the base is a little slot of wood that's called a reducer. You can see it here in this picture. It just gives a smaller entrance that is needed in the spring and the fall when the hive is a bit weaker. Or for new hives, it's just to reduce the risk of the other robbing bees who are trying to get into your hive. So it keeps the hive a bit safer when it's weak, when it's new, or when it's spring or fall. So in the summer when the honey is flowing, you can take that off, but in the spring and the fall, and when your hive is brand new, you want to keep that reducer on. Then your first one or two boxes after this is what's called your brood boxes. These two boxes are where the queen lives, and all she does in these two boxes is lay eggs. Other things do happen in here, like storing food to get ready for winter, but for the most part, this is the laying station and this is where the queen stays. So you start your hive with one box, and the bees you'll first buy will go in here. As the queen lays eggs and the hive gets stronger, you'll add a second brood box for them to fill up as well. You add the second box when the first box is filled about 80% with brood. Your brood will look like this. Then when the flowers are all blooming and the honey is flowing and the brood boxes are about 80% full, you'll need to add on what's called a queen separator on top of the two brood boxes. This screen or queen separator allows the worker bees to move up into the honey super, which I'll show you in a minute, but it keeps the queen down below in the brood boxes because she's bigger physically and can't fit through the screen. That way she's not laying eggs where the honey will be, and it keeps the brood or the eggs separate from the honey, which just makes it easier for you when you need to harvest the honey. So you have your queen separator on, and your brood chambers are now 80% full, so now it's time to add on what's called a honey super. So you start with one box, and again, when it's filled about 80% with honey, you'll add another honey super, and then another, and so on. You need to keep adding boxes so that the bees have space to fill up with honey. And on top is your cover. The cover protects the bees from rain, and there are different kinds of covers depending on what season it is. In spring and fall, when there's not enough flowers out, you'll need to feed them. And you may use a feeder pail, which means you need a top that looks like this one with a hole. That way the feed can drip down, or the bees can go up to access the feed on top in the pail. In the summer when the honey is flowing, you won't need to feed them, and you can use this top that is more protective. It has a piece of metal on top that keeps the rain out and protects the wood from being damaged. So those are all the levels and boxes of the beehive. Now let's talk about what's actually inside each of these boxes. When I first started, I would watch videos like this and think to myself, I guess I need to buy 2 brood boxes, and then I need to buy some of these honey supers, and there's different kinds of sizes of supers. There's mediums, there's full-size boxes. I was confused about what exactly I needed to buy. So the nice thing about this hobby is that the boxes are actually all the same. They're on an outside shell or a box with a ledge on the top for 10 frames or foundations to rest in. So the box looks like this, and the frames and foundations that go inside look like this. These are most commonly a wood rectangular frame with a plastic foundation in the middle that has the outline of a honeycomb pattern on it, and the bees build this out with wax. Bees are builders, so they take these frames and draw them out with honeycomb. It will go from looking like this to this. Now, depending on where in the hive that frame is located will determine what they are putting into the drawn out honeycomb. If they're in the bottom or brood box, which will be under the queen separator, they will most commonly be used to hold the brood or the bee eggs. They will look like this. The brood box is also where they store food for the winter in most climates, but for the bulk of the season, the queen is just laying eggs in this comb. Above the queen separator, or in the honey supers, the bees are filling the comb with honey. The honey will look like this. They fill the comb with honey, and then they cap it with wax so that the honey stays put. Usually 2 or 3 times a year, the beekeeper takes these frames out, scrapes the top cap off, and then spins the frame in an extractor to get the honey out. Then the frames go back into the hive and the bees do it all again. One thing to note is that there are different styles of beehives, but for the most part the idea is the same. I'll have a video a little later that shows the differences in these other hives. So that's the gist of beekeeping. There is a lifetime of learning that can go into this hobby, and I'll discuss some key topics in future videos. Some key things you're going to need to learn through in the first year or two are how to prevent swarming, how to treat mites or other diseases, and how to extract honey in a safe and healthy fashion. My next video I'm going to recommend you watch is Year 1 of a Beginner Beekeeper. This will show you step by step what you need to do within your first year of beekeeping. Hopefully you've enjoyed my video, and if you're starting your beekeeping adventure, subscribe to my channel so that you can catch my future videos as well. If you do have any comments or criticism or questions, also feel free to comment. I'd love to hear from you. Good luck and thanks for watching.